Okay, now we are live, and I need to mute this as soon as it starts up so that I don't hear my own audio. Uh, and we already have a question, which is excellent. Um, Before we get into that, we're just going to kind of go around and talk a little bit about what is happening in Ashland, what the other core team members that are here are working on, that kind of thing. And before we do any of that, we're going to confirm when this YouTube live stream pops up for us, because it's on a delay, we're going to confirm that there is actual audio coming through.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. It looks like we're good. I'm hearing the audio, it's coming through. I'll let YouTube chat tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I think we're good to go. All right. I will start. I have been working on um, 3.1 actually. I've got a bunch of bug fix work that's been going in, um, and as always, but been working on 3.1, which this actually dovetails very nicely into the first question we have in the YouTube channel, which is I am actually working on generators right now. So generators are a target for 3.1. They are going to be probably pretty different from what you're used to seeing. Um, I they're I don't want to say better than what's out there, but they're better than what's out there. So, what was that, James?
They're different, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, they're different. That's for sure. So I'm pretty excited about that project, and it should be, not like in the next week or two or anything, but 3.1 is going to be super, far away before we have something worth playing with. And it's also worth noting that we do have one generator now, which is there's two generators. There's mix ashphoenix.gen.live and mix ashphoenix.gen.html, I believe, in Ash Phoenix, which will generate a live view and controllers and that sort of thing from an existing resource. But that's kind of a one-off. It's not implemented the way the rest of the generators are going to be implemented. Um, should we give them the? We've been kind of teasing this project a bit. Should we give them the name of the new thing, or should we save that?
Go for it.
You think so?
Yeah, ship it.
All right. So we're working on a project called Igniter, um, that should essentially we're hoping is going to be kind of the basis for generators, code generation, installers, that sort of thing for a lot more packages in the Elixir ecosystem, not just Ash. So we're pretty excited about that. James has done a lot of work on a lot of discovery work, a lot of really. It's an interesting problem. There's a lot of angles at play to do like proper to do generators that aren't just sort of like good for one thing, like starting off a project. Um, but yeah, we're all very excited. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'll pass it over to James if you want to maybe speak to what you've been up to.
Oh man, I've been up to so much. Mostly I've been working on one of Zach's favorite things he likes to ask me about, which is when will we have map steps in Reactor? So the ability to um, pull in a collection of things like a list or a stream or whatever and iterate over them, and run a bunch of steps for each one, and then collect the results and use them in subsequent steps. Is exposing some small issues in the way I modeled the data, and also or the way I modeled the problem, and also some small issues in the way I think. Um, so it's been a lot harder than I expected it to be, but that's what's going on. Also working on like there seems to be constant requests for improvement from Rebecca for Smokestack, so I've been working on that also, as well as the usual bout of client work that we have to balance.
So I think Reactor is pretty widely used. I think it's pretty visible, but maybe not everybody knows about Smokestack, or is kind of. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that? Just what it is.
Um, yeah, so Smokestack is a declarative factory for Ash resources. So it gives us a Spark-based DSL where you can define the attributes on a resource that you want to generate values for and how you'd like to generate them. Most likely you probably just want to call Faker to do it, but there are other little templates there where you can say choose from this list of options or whatever. And it will, because it understands Ash, it will build the relationships. It will build, it'll load any calculations that you ask it to load. It'll do all that sort of Ash kind of stuff for you without you having to do it manually.
Awesome. Okay, before we transition over to Ricardo, I guess we have a good question that I think your comments dovetail into, which is what's a concrete example use case for Reactor?
Um, so the most common thing I would come up with is when you need something to behave like a transaction that isn't a transaction, or that you can't do all on one data source. So for example, if you're talking to an external API and then you want to create a record that only if that external API call succeeds, and then you maybe want to talk to another API and do that only if the previous database call succeeded, and if it doesn't, you need to be able to undo all the work you did. So go back to those APIs and say, hey, forget I said that. That's kind of the classic example of what React is for.
Yeah, I think that's oh, interesting. Um, Jefferson's saying can't hear him. Can people not hear? Surely everybody can hear James and Ricardo. Otherwise, somebody would have said something before now. Can, I'm gonna wait for a YouTube comment to confirm before we keep going because I don't want everybody to be talking into the wind here. Okay. That person had muted. Okay, good. All good.
Okay.
um,
Crisis averted.
all right. Thanks for the jump scare, Jefferson. Um, no, yeah. So I think distributed transactions are the classic example. I think that Reactor also shines when you have long workflows and maybe complex dependencies. And in a lot of cases, like for certain classes of problems, it will almost certainly solve them better than you could, right? It's a graph-based saga runner. So if you have like 50 things that need to happen, I mean these are more rare, right? This is why like Reactor has been made into its own tool, stands on its own right, but integrates nicely with Ash. Is that I think these are in some ways more rare scenarios. Um, but when you get them, you need the tool. Otherwise, you build something really crappy, right? So I think it's there are distributed transactions is the classic example of why you would want a Saga runner, a Saga orchestrator. But there are more examples where it shines too. All right, Ricardo, you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing?
Yeah, I was finally able to tackle the issue I started working on last month. So basically, I was working on an application that was using Ash GraphQL, and I wanted to, uh, and I said, oh, okay, why not generate automatically relay connections, so pagination for related resources, and I started working on it from the DSL side in Ash GraphQL, and all was going well. And then when I hit the query part, I realized that there was not support for it in the query itself. And so I started to do some yuck shaving, and I added support for that in Ash itself. So first I implemented the relationship pagination. So now you can use ash.query to add pagination to your relationship. So you can load arbitrarily nested relationships using pagination. And when that actually landed, and we had to actually Zach had to handle some corner cases which were too hard for me to tackle, but it was very helpful and very quick to handle them. And when that was smooth enough, I circled back to the HGraphQL, and now basically you can have a resource in HGraphQL, and you just say on your GraphQL object, you just say paginate with, and you say which kind of pagination you want on the various many relationships, so as many or many to many, and it automatically generates the page type, and you can basically have nested relay connections, which is something I was talking about on Discord. I was talking about that. Basically, the application I did that I was working on, we kept pushing it back and back because the idea of having to manually implementing the pagination everywhere, even with data loader, was really too much. And now I got to implement it once in one place, and we get it for free in the whole application. So
Nice work. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's in a lot of ways like it's probably one of those features that will be maybe a little understated because like it's not right in your face when you first use the tool like oh I can paginate relationships, but it's one of those features that um, it's such a good example of how Ash is like more than just like a data mapper. Like we're trying to bring these like application concepts that are required for like building more advanced things into like this tool. And so like being able to paginate relationships like that with like one line of code in your GraphQL API is crazy. But then at the same time, that same stuff could power live views that have like, if you have like a nested page structure, right? Like you can use that same exact structure to model that with live view and this and utilities to page through, you know, the next query. And like that's wild. So I'm extremely excited about that, and I'm very impressed by all the work that you put in to that. So it's really great.
that was my white whale for this month.
So on this topic, actually, something that we're going to start doing. So we've had these monthly office hours a couple times. I think it's our fourth one. And something that we're going to start doing is just trying to recognize members of the community who are going, you know, above and beyond and contributing a lot of their time or being, you know, upstanding community members, that sort of thing. And we have two this month. So we have a certificate of recognition for Ricardo. And this is, as you can see, in recognition of your contributions to Ash Framework and achievement in being an outstanding member of the community. So uh, I've sent this already over to Ricardo. I don't really know, you know, I don't think you can use that to go buy a popcorn, but, you know, maybe I do think that it's important for us to show our appreciation for the work that folks do.
Can you show the certificate on the stream?
I did, yeah. If you might not have seen it on the thing yet, but
okay.
So we have one more who Dimitri is not here right now. So you heard about Ricardo and kind of the stuff that he worked on that, as he mentioned, was kind of a white whale. So Dimitri has done a lot of like almost the opposite style of thing recently. Oh wait, I don't think I did show the. I'm looking at the YouTube preview and it like doesn't show file previews for some reason. So nobody saw the thing. That's weird. Mac, what? Like I'm looking at it and it's not showing up on the thing, even though I'm moving my mouse around on it. Um. Okay, well, just have to trust me that there's a certificate being displayed on the screen because I don't.
I saw it. I can prove it to you.
Yeah, I don't really understand how that works, but maybe it's like my streaming software trying to protect me from displaying my social security number on or something, but there is a certificate. We've sent it to them. They have it. So Dmitry Maganov, I'm sure I mangled the name, the last name, but has done kind of some almost opposite side of that white whale work, which is a lot of really detail oriented work that has kind of been cleaning up some of my messes. In fact, finding some edge cases that even I'm looking, I'm like, man, that's some really impressive investigation. Um, and just been invaluable in general, in kind of keeping things ship shape. And usually when Dimitri's found something that needs to be addressed, I find out because he makes a pull request with the fix, and that's always a great experience for me as well. So, round of applause to Ricardo and Dimitri. We really appreciate all the work that both of you have put in. All right. So this concludes the initial introduction and overview of the team and announcements section. I'll reiterate an announcement I made early on, which is that 3.1, we're working on it, and that will include generators, which is, I think, a lot of people will be excited about that. And I think it's just on to questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking a look at the chat. We've got one question that we haven't answered yet, and we'll kind of go from here. So from Noah, hey folks, new to Ash. I had a use case where I was trying to use the ETS data layer for some light form validation, and I have an attribute that's array string, and I haven't been able to map the form hookups quite right. Are there any examples of that? So when you say the form hookups, I assume you're talking about ashphoenix.form. And that's actually an interesting question, because I think doing like lists of strings is kind of like you're kind of on your own for it right now. I don't think we have like a helper to generate like subforms for just lists of values. Like we have a bunch of helpers around like nested forms where each one is a resource for like embedded resources or for related resources. But for actually just lists of strings, like typically what you have to do is like, you can use ashphoenix.form.value to get the current list. And then like for each item in the list with index, you construct an input. It's actually pretty ugly. And I think it would be a good, that would be a nice utility to have in ashphoenix.form, where we could say like, like list, like, value list forms or something like that would basically do that work for you.
It
But
feels to me like there should actually just be an embedded resource that has maybe just has one attribute on it that then you can add that to the form. And
we do have that built into ashphoenix.form. There's a thing called wrapped value, and so I think that's what we would probably use. But I think the difficulty is I'm not sure if we can. Yeah, it may require some thinking, because I'm not sure if we can assume that any list, if you say inputs for, actually, yeah, I think we could just make inputs for work where if the value that we get is an actual list and it's not configured as like one of these more complex forms, then we will use the wrapped value form for each value. The only thing there is there are some technical concerns there that it could kind of like, it could hide that you've done something wrong. Like you have inputs for, and you're expecting it to be for like an embedded attribute, but you get back a list of strings, and we just like happily chug along and turn them into a wrapped value or something like that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how significant that would be. Yeah. So interesting ideas, Noah. Thank you for the question. Sorry, I should have said that originally. Noah Heen asked that question. But I would suggest it's actually some pretty low hanging fruit that we could probably improve. So if you want to maybe drop a line on Elixir Forum or in Discord, we can talk more about it. I could help you, guide you through what might be a contribution, or just kind of get an issue lodged that illustrates what we need, and we can go from there. Brian says, what's the best way to contribute to AshHQ? Where does AshHQ pull its sources from? So this is actually, it's a great question. It's all pulled from the hex docs of the packages themselves. Like it's pulled from the documentation in the packages. So I think if I show this, that this will work. I'm hoping that, but if I go to like Ash Hex docs, like this is all, these docs in here are all the documentation that's on Ash HQ is all just sourced from here. So ultimately, the way that you fix it is, I don't think that showed on the stream.
No.
All right. Well, I think what I actually have set it up is to only show the Discord window, and I just didn't realize that. It's just doing it in a weird way. So ultimately, you can basically contribute the same way you would contribute to any package's documentation. It's all there in the GitHub repository for that package. And Brian's pointing out that you guys aren't seeing me share anything, and there's a little delay here, but probably right about now, he's seeing me realize that I'm not sharing anything more than the Discord window. So sorry about that, Brian. So that gets updated. It's every 6 hours that we check for new packages, and it gets updated whenever a package has a new release, like a new version published to Hex. So that's the story there. And look, realistically, I'm not convinced that Ash HQ is all that long for the world. We have like the Ash HQ is always going to be around, but the team is working on cross-package search for Hex, for like annotating things like sibling search, even like vector search across Hex, and so there's all these things that are being worked on, and we want to be kind of like, we want to lean into the good work that people are putting into tools like HexDoc that generates the documentation for Hex. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in like 6 months, if Ash HQ is just a homepage and some blurbs, and then there's a link to the Hex docs or something for each package or something along those lines. So yeah, I would head there. Honestly, you'll have a better experience at this point. The only thing that's not good is the lack of cross-package search. But that kind of becomes less of a problem the more you use Ash. You start to figure out where to look for things, that sort of thing. But yeah. All right. Do we have any questions in Discord? I don't know if you guys, I can't check it because it will take me away from the thing I'm sharing.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Question from myself: Is Igniter the thing that is related to the zipper stuff, or is it something else?
I don't know. What do you think? Yes, it is. It is. All right. So the cat's out of the bag, and it's probably only going to be a couple weeks before we have something actually shipped out there. But the way that this all works, like what we're doing for generators, if you're familiar with, there's a tool called Recode. It's like the linter that fixes things for you. And that's written on top of a thing called Rewrite, which is for like staging changes to project files and patching them and patching source code and stuff like that, which is on top of a thing called Sorcerer, which is for parsing Elixir AST while retaining things like comments and white space and parentheses and stuff like that. And so we're building things along those lines. So the generators that we're working on are like installers, which is like, given an existing project, install a package into it by modifying files and that sort of thing. And the data and like the API to that, like if you want to write a generator for Igniter, it's actually really simple. It's nice. You just say like, make sure that in the config file, there's like this configuration is set to this value, but under the hood, it's like this hell of data structure of manipulating AST, where we use something called a zipper. I didn't come up with this, right? Like I'm just using it, but a zipper is like, you have the whole abstract syntax tree, but you also retain like your path to a point inside of it. So you're like kind of moving up and down a tree, but the whole tree is still there. Um, and so what you do is like it's just it's really complicated internally, and it's kind of a brain bender because like things that you can do in a regular Elixir you can't do when you're working with like against AST of the source code and everything. Just really complicated. Um, so that's my what drove my comment about never hearing the word zibber again. Um, yeah, yeah. There'll be more teasers about the generators. I think probably maybe next week or the week after we'll have some teasers that are a little bit more fleshed out. Um, and here I go putting artificial deadlines on myself because everybody's going to be like, "Hey, you said
Oh,
you'd have teasers in a week or two," but yeah, we'll see what happens.
look, you'll get them when they're ready. Okay.
Yes. Um, all right. Well, we've still got 30 minutes in the allotted time for this meeting, but we don't have any more questions. So there's 12 people in this stream. Three of them are probably the three of us. So there's 9 people in this stream. Um, uh, your questions are going to be what keeps us going because otherwise we'll cut it off early and all go hug our families. Brian says he's marking his calendar. Put it under my promised deliverables section, I guess, right? Aren't you? Uh, I do have to say, like something I didn't anticipate is how brutal the like. It's like a 20-second delay or something on YouTube live streams and chat. Uh, Brian says, not sure this is the place, but I have an issue with password reset when using multi-tenancy. An
Oh dear.
issue with password reset when using multi. Oh, it's telling you something like you didn't set the tenant, but a tenant is required. Is that right, Brian? It's I know it's right. It's got to be. That's got to be the
We
thing.
do we do actually store the tenant in the reset token, so it should be applied. And if it's not, then that's a bug, and you should open an issue, and I will fix it.
You heard it from the man himself. I mean, maybe we're wrong though. Maybe the issue is like unrelated to what we're assuming it is. But this vicious YouTube delay makes it impossible. I saw something impressive at the Krakow meeting. They were doing a YouTube stream, but they were also doing like a what's it called, RTP or something, whatever, some other RTC stream. The latency was so much lower. It was crazy. I was very impressed. So maybe YouTube could kind of figure it out. That'd be great. All right, we're going to assume that we've just rocked Brian's world in that case, and totally solved the issue. No, yeah, if there's a bug there, and it probably is a bug, just yeah, go ahead and open it on Hash Authentication, and we'll get it sorted. More questions? I can only vamp for so long. Oh, here we go. No other questions. Dogbone, which is a great name, says, I've got no other questions, but I'm really excited to hear about the direction for Igniter. Recode, rewrite, Sorcerer's Ash is a great foundation. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very interesting. I I'll tell you my pie in the sky hope is that we can get this actually adopted across the ecosystem, even in our bigger projects like Phoenix. Um, we it's kind of a little magical install process. If you say like how you say mix phoenix.new, for example, you would start off any given project by saying like mix igniter.new, which would get you an empty mix project with just igniter as a dev dependency. That's it. And then you would say mix igniter.install Phoenix. And the way that it works is we ask Hex like what's the latest version that folks should be using for this. We pick like a good dependency. We put it in your deps, like in the list of your dependencies for you. So, for instance, if you say mix igniter.install ash, right, we put ash, tilde arrow 3.0 in the dependencies, and then we check, does the package define mix igniter.install the package name? And if it does, then we run that installer, right? And it all gets stacked up into this like one nice big diff. That so like I think that this is actually a very real problem with people getting started in the Elixir ecosystem of, do I do mix new or do I do mix phoenix.new? Like they have this choice, right? But phoenix.new is just mix new plus stuff. So like we shouldn't have to have this like decision point so early on in the process of starting a new project where I have to say like, well, am I making a Phoenix app or a regular app? And I think we can take that even further of like, we can have like something that turns your app into an umbrella app if you want to umbrella it, or like de-umbrella it if you want to like turn it back into, like these are these like weighty decisions that make that are kind of hard for no reason that it seems like we should be able to solve. Um,
Yeah.
Doggo says,
Also,
oh,
maybe when you generate a Phoenix application, you have to choose beforehand if you want HTML stuff or Ecto stuff, and maybe you want to add it later. And right now, the fastest, the way I do it, if I have to add Ecto or HTML Phoenix stuff, I basically do in /tmp, regenerate the project with that stuff and copy it over in the other project.
yep. Yeah, exactly. It's like I should be able to just say, start a new project, mix, igniter.install Phoenix, and that's just Phoenix, like just the tiniest version of a Phoenix installation that exists. And then mix igniter.install Ecto, or maybe Phoenix Ecto. We also have like mix igniter.gen for like, so you might say mix igniter.gen Phoenix Ecto, and that gives you like the Phoenix and Ecto integration code or something like that. And this like it's going to lead to like I think a really good developer experience. And actually, Dogbone put a good term to it in chat. Says the composable generator framework. I think that's absolutely what it is, right? Which is and that's actually what we call it. You say compose task. If you want to like stack two generator tasks together, you say compose task, and we like look at the task and pull out the generator part, but not the mix task part. It's a long story, but so you can just stack them all up and make one big script for changes.
And it actually outputs a nicely formatted diff for you, not just like with highlights and everything.
And that's all thanks to Rewrite, right? So like we're building on the shoulders of a lot of great work from the community. So, which it's very impressive stuff. And so ultimately what it's going to lead to is a very different ballgame for getting started and making choices and reducing decision fatigue early on. But also, I think what's really interesting is like this kind of came to me in a dream last night. But I was realizing like one of the generators I'm writing. So there, you can pass the -- example flag to. I'm just spilling the whole story about how these generators work.
Yeah, just tell.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You can pass the -- example flag to mix igniter.install ash, and that will prompt it to include like an example domain and resources with attributes and stuff. And the way that works is by composing generators. Like there's a mix igniter.gen.ash.resource.attribute. I know it's a mouthful, but it's important. That's what it is. So that you can add an attribute to a resource with a command. But now imagine that you have like an error message that says, could so and so requires an attribute called version to exist that is an integer, and it could spit out a command that you could run that would add that would fix it. It would add a version attribute to your resource that is an integer, right? Like it. So these having this like suite of little generators is also going to mean that you can say, I can send you a patch. Like I can say, oh, the way to fix that is by running this command that, will generate something into your resources or something like that, right? Like, so it's really powerful stuff. But we
It
got to
also
get
fixes
it there.
a lot of the, there's that kind of error-driven development when you're installing Ash authentication. Like you try and break out an action and then it just doesn't compile until it tells you one step at a time, like do this, now do this, now do this. Where if it could just go run these, that'd be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think Ash authentication is a great example of like rightfully so. We always knew it. We knew this going into it that it was going to be a lot more like the getting started guide is making a lot of choices, a lot of setup of X, Y, and Z. An AI front end for Igniter, love it. That sounds great. Dogbone's going to work on an AI front
So
end
it,
for Igniter.
so it can be wrong 46% of the time. That's great.
But you'll have a lot of a lot of a lot of code about it. Yeah. So, oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Um, yeah. We always knew that Ash authentication was going to have a lot of that stuff, and I think that right now, going through Ash authentication when you install it is a lot of guide following. But if
Yeah.
we can introduce like a more interactive, maybe like an interactive generator, um, one, it actually makes, I don't really like code generation as an alternative to just making your library smarter. I think just make the library
Yeah.
smarter. Don't but it does make certain things like that our users face quite often, which is they're like, okay, I want to write my own views. I want to write my own live views that generate, it's like, okay, well, now that's a little bit more of an option for us if we have this generator framework is like, here's some simple live views that should work with your resource, and you can have like a mix Ash authentication phoenix.eject or something, um, which I think will be useful. I'd show you guys a demo, but I put it on a branch somewhere and I'm not ready for a demo, so never mind.
And also you can share your screens.
Yeah,
So.
that's true.
you could you could fake showing a demo and then say, oh,
Oh wow,
it
that's
was not
awesome.
showing.
Oh, Zach, that's incredible.
Oh yeah. This is an interesting question from Dogwood. Would Igniter take a data structure as input, app definitions in YAML or JSON, etc.? No, but that's a one layer up type thing, right? So Igniter is, um, think of it like a standard library of code mods. So like, for instance, there's like a igniter.deps.add dependency. So when you install Ash, we say igniter.deps.add dependency to add the picosat elixir dependency automatically. And there's another one that says add a formatter plugin, igniter.formatter.add plugin, right? So if your library ships with a formatter plugin, when they install it, it'll add it to their plugin. And there's one for config and all that sort of stuff. And but I think so. I think in a way you can think of it like more like the programming language that would back like a thing that took a data structure and then generated an app, where you would take your data structure of, okay, it should be a Phoenix app that does X, Y, and that has X, Y, and Z routes and should have X, Y, and Z Ash resources and whatever, right? You could then feed that into, uh, but I will not be concerning myself with that for Igniter.
But Igniter allows you to define essentially a recipe of other Igniter generators to run. So maybe not a JSON file, but certainly there is a data structure that, like, there's a list of things to do, of instructions, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, right now it's all functional composition. So it's actually not DSL based, or it's not data, which, if you know me, not my normal thing. Um,
Yeah.
but in this particular instance, I think we're starting here, and I think we may eventually arrive at, um, but it's like it's all mixed task based, and so it's complicated. Like the data oriented benefits start to go away a little bit because these are like ephemeral Elixir script files. So that's neither here nor there. But yes, like there's no reason that it couldn't be done. It just wouldn't be Igniter that gives you that tool. All right, chat. Oh, there's 13 people. That means there's 10 people. I'm assuming all three of us have the live stream open. So we're three
Yes.
we're 3 of 13. Come on, guys, give us questions. Fun fact: I'm going directly from this meeting, this Ash Office Hours meeting, to another meeting called Ash Office Hours that we hold internally at our company Alembic. Um, for anybody who's interested in that little fun fact. I don't give out certificates at
And
that
it's,
one.
oh, we could.
We could.
I've got someone in mind for a certificate.
uh, all right. If we don't get a question in the next 1 to 2 minutes, I'm going to assume that we're winding down. That y'all have lost interest. You don't like me anymore. Is there a fixed schedule? Okay, Brian Bryce asks, is there a fixed schedule for this live stream? There is not a fixed schedule for this live stream. Generally, the way that it works is it'll be around the end of the month, and I'll pick a date like a week or two beforehand, probably, but usually 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. Um, but I intentionally move it around because the core team is geographically distributed. We have some people who couldn't make this one because of the time zone. The next one will be like early in my morning to allow like potentially Barnabas to attend, that kind of thing, right? So I'm kind of intentionally not pinning it to any one time slot so as to not like make sure that Europeans can never attend, for example.
We could pick 2 or 3 time slots and rotate them. That might be a bit more discoverable.
Yeah, I'm not organized enough for that.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's like I look at the end of the month, the last week of the month, and then I'm like, when can I do this? And but that would be a good idea. Will we? Okay, Jefferson asks, will we be able to ship custom Igniter installers as plugins/libraries, i.e., to provide a custom Phoenix install with libraries XYZ with just one command, or to extend what an Igniter installer already does? Um, yes. So that's actually how it works already. So what I'm working on, for example, and what I'm testing, there's a bunch of generators defined in Ash. Um, so it would be the way you would probably do it if you had a. I mean, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could have like an alternative to mix, you know, igniter.gen or igniter.install Phoenix. Like you'd have to tell users like, don't call igniter.install Phoenix, call my thing. But more realistically, and more like in the spirit of the tool is you would have like, let's say you have your, thing that sort of, is like wants something to be different about a user's Phoenix app. You would write it as a transformation of a Phoenix app, where you would say like, here's how you go from a regular Phoenix app to be set up for our thing. But yeah, you absolutely can ship. It's actually it's a a thin wrapper over a mix task is what an igniter generator is. So every igniter generator is a mix task. It's just that there's a function called def igniter that returns just the diff, like the patch itself. That way we can compose them on demand. So you can say, actually take these 5 mix tasks and make one diff that's the result of running all 5 of them, right? So otherwise, so aside from that, they are basically just mix tasks, and you can add them in your own libraries um, just fine. There's only one thing that you have to do that's a little bit weird is you don't want to add Igniter as a dependency, as a required dependency of your project, because then it will like ship to users' production environment. So what you have to do, it's a little janky, but this is just the way Elixir dependencies work. There's nothing that we can do about it. Um, is you would mark it as an optional dependency, and then you would wrap your modules with like if code.ensure loaded Igniter. And then in users' apps who want to use Igniter, they would add Igniter and say only dev test. And then that makes the whole, that, completes the rest of the circle, without users like shipping Igniter to production, which isn't the worst thing ever, but it's just not necessary. It's not what you should do. Jefferson says, that's so cool. It's like a brew formula, and we would be able to create installers for libraries which the author don't support yet. Yeah, absolutely. It would be triviality to do so. I mean, well, it'd be triviality. Like yes, there's nothing that could stop you from doing that. It's a very similar to brew in that way that like my goal is you can say, and you already can, you can say mix igniter.install any Elixir package from Hex, and it will work. It's just that if they don't have their own installer defined in the project, in the package, then it will just add the dependency to your mix.x's file. So you can use it. That's even just that is a nice experience, right? Just to say like mix igniter.install some dependency and to just get the latest dependency added into your app. That's already a benefit. And I hope, but may not be able to do, I will see. We'll see, is to support GitHub packages as well. So you can say mix, igniter.install, ash-project/ash, and it'll go to the latest commit and do the same thing. Now that I say it, I don't see any reason why I can't do that. It'll just work. Brian mentioned a calendar feed would work. That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. I wonder if the feeds themselves, like the live streams for this meeting, this thing, are up on YouTube for like weeks beforehand. So maybe is that like a schedule you could subscribe to? Maybe I don't know. Like if you go to our channel, can you say like, I mean, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll probably get notifications about maybe upcoming live events.
Make sure you hit the bell.
Yeah, make sure you smash that like button. Smash that like button and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, everyone.
I just liked it. Okay, we had 13 people here at one point, but only 4 likes. Come on, y'all. What's up with that? I guess 6 people didn't like it.
3 of them are us, so what does that say?
I hadn't liked it yet either. I just liked it just now.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, look at that. Number go up.
Where is the like button in the new YouTube?
It's the thumbs up. Like you can't miss
layout.
All right.
So a question that came to me when we were talking about Igniter, you mentioned the fact that you do igniter.add Phoenix, and I guess it looks inside the Phoenix package to see if it has some Igniter stuff. But is there a way to I guess if I have to develop the Phoenix stuff before upstreaming it, can I point it locally but say install Phoenix? Because otherwise I have to develop the installer without being able to test it before it's upstreamed in the package itself. Or maybe the original author doesn't have that.
Yeah, so I'm having to solve for that right now, like because I'm like Ash, like the generators for Ash that I'm like testing out aren't deployed to Hex. The way that it works is if you already have the dependency in your mix.x's file, and it's not exactly the same as the dependency that we're trying to add, it will say, hey, I see that you have that dependency. Do you want me to do anything about it? And if you just say no, then it will proceed to check if it has. And the way we check is we run mixeddeps.get and mixcompile. So like if you're pointed at a local dependency, then we use mix task. We did like mix.task.get or whatever it's called to get the task by the name, and if that comes back, then we know it's there. So yeah, you can develop locally by that. The only thing you have to do is just annoyingly press N to know like don't change my dependency every time you run the igniter.
Probably add a flag for that.
Yeah, probably. Or
N.
like yeah, or like check even if it's a path dependency. Like if it's a path dependency, like surely you don't want us to replace it. There's ways that we can make that a little bit cleaner, but you can do that if you're developing an installer.
Yeah, because the other use case I was thinking about is that maybe someone wants to add an Igniter installer for package X, and for some reason the maintainer of package X doesn't want to upstream the installer inside the code base because I don't know, maybe saying I have to maintain that.
No. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I'm actually kind of open to the idea of just putting all of those in Igniter itself. Like if there's like a package that people want to install that the maintainers don't want to maintain, like we could kind of like how like, with Brew, they have it's a big GitHub repository basically, right, of all the stuff, right? So it's like we could just have like a bunch of built-in installers and like just kind of best effort maintain them, like or a separate repository.
We could have we could have a hex package called like community installers or something that you can.
Yeah,
that's better. Can just send a PR to. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess there's going to be probably an initial phase where, while it ramps up, it's not popular enough that people are going to maybe have it in their own repository, but then if it doesn't have enough installers, etc., etc.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Because I mean, there's going to be a lot of time. Like, it's probably going to be like, it's the kind of tool that will have finicky stuff. It's going to be in beta for like quite some time because we have to do things like properly detect that we can't make the changes that you want and give you like a nice little message that says like, hey, go make these changes because we couldn't figure out how to do it. And we have to like the errors states have to be nice and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you're right. There is going to be a whole period of time where like, I think probably having like community installers probably from a very early point will. I wonder what we could do is like at the I don't know. I had this thought of like it would be nice if when you run one of those community installers, we like ping like plausible analytics or something, like some bot like that says like, hey, somebody just installed so we could show like hey, you've got like 10,000 people using this thing like or something. But
that seems like a pretty easy web app to make.
It would be cool. It would be, but at the same time, it's like people don't really like the idea of their dependencies hitting third-party services. So I don't know. We could.
It's just in dev, and we can ask. Like when you install Igniter, you just say like, "Hey, do you mind if we collect analytics?"
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. As long as we get, consent, and we probably get consent from each person and store it in like a file on the machine, like.
Yeah, and their XDG data do or whatever.
Yeah, like just say, did they give us?
Config.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's a fun idea. Cool. Well, a lot of excitement about Igniter. That's nice. If you've known anything about me and generators, I have always been very anti-generator. Which is why we have like a 4.5, 5-year-old framework that doesn't have a mix ash.new command yet. It's because,
and it's why we've been working on Igniter for over a year.
Yeah,
like going around in circles on different ways of doing it that aren't shit. Can I say shit? I did it.
You can say shit.
I think we just got demonetized.
I don't think we're making a lot of money from the 13 viewers right now. Now I can't put dinner on the table, James.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it is it's a difficult problem, and I haven't been happy with any of the ways that I've seen it done to date anywhere. Not just like Elixir ecosystem. Not calling anybody out. I just uh, yeah, it's problematic. It's a problematic process, and so we're trying to do the best we can to make it simultaneously not shit, as James put it, but also more useful. Because right now, generators in their most common form are not actually. They tend not to be actually very useful. Um, it's good for like a beginner who doesn't know what to do. Um, and at that point maybe you use a generator to do like a quick start thing, but there is typically not like we don't make smart generators where you can say actually only give me this little bit here and tack this onto that, and none of that stuff happens, right? It's like an all or nothing type thing, and that's why you do end up with the stuff like what Ricardo was talking about of like clone a whole new project, generate the whole thing, and then copy files over, right? Is because it's just that's the nature of the beast when it's like when they're file generators. And I understand how we got there, right? There's time trade-offs that get made in this process, but I think we can solve the problem once and for all.
And that's kind of comes back to the Ash philosophy, right? Like do the hard thing once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop. Yes. And I hate the idea of writing a bunch of like mixed tasks to generate code. Yeah, it's just resolving that same problem all the time for all of our packages, ad infinitum. Like, just not interested. Ugh. All right, everybody. We're at time. I think James was going to point that out, or did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was it.
I'll give you two a chance if you have any parting words you want to say, but anything you guys want to shout out?
Bye.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bye-bye. Yeah. I'm
right,
going to bed now.
All right.
I'm one of those Europeans.
Well, I appreciate you staying up late for us, buddy. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.